George Floyd, a 46-year-old black American, died in Minneapolis after being handcuffed and pinned to the ground by a white police officer named Derek Chauvin. His murder was caught on tape by other bystanders. In the video, it can be clearly seen how Officer Chauvin sits behind the police car and uses his knee to press on Floyd's neck for 8 minutes while the other officers watch. Floyd is repeatedly saying that he cannot breathe during the video. The video was posted on social media and quickly spread. The Minneapolis police chief, Medaria Arradondo, fired all the officers involved in George Floyd's arrest. That night, hundreds of protesters flooded into the streets of Minneapolis. Some demonstrators indeed vandalized police vehicles with graffiti and targeted the precinct house where the officers involved in the murder worked. Demonstrators in other cities began organizing. Protests in Memphis, Louisville, Los Angeles, and Brunswick took place in reaction to the recent killings by the police of Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. Hundreds were present and, as a result, parts of the streets and freeways had to be closed down. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz activated the National Guard. The order came as the city asked for help after vandalism and fires broke out during demonstrations. Mr. Walz later said that he had activated thousands of additional National Guard troops to send to Minneapolis, but had declined the Army's offer to deploy military police units. Walz argued that the situation in Minneapolis was no longer about the murder of George Floyd, but about attacking civil society, instilling fear and disruption. President Trump delivered an ultimatum to the protesters, suggesting that the military could use armed forces to suppress riots. On Twitter, the president called the protesters thugs and said that when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Meanwhile, Chauvin, the police officer who murdered Mr. Floyd, was arrested and charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter, risking decades in prison.
As the protests continue, mayors call on people to remain home, saying that the protests have turned to looting and domestic terrorism. In Minneapolis, an 8 p.m. curfew was imposed. Although the protesters have remained largely peaceful during their demonstration, the police and National Guards have still responded with violence. Besides using rubber bullets, which can lead to permanent injuries, and tear gas, there have also been incidents of individuals being killed. In Chicago, 6 people were shot and 1 was killed Saturday night. In Detroit, a 21-year-old man was fatally shot as he sat in a car when protesters took to the streets on Friday. And in Kentucky, a man was shot and killed after shots broke out around midnight Sunday. George Floyd's family requested an independent autopsy after the official police record concluded that Floyd had died of natural causes after he had been taken to the hospital. The independent autopsy showed that Mr. Floyd had indeed died due to being asphyxiated by the police officer's knee. As the protests continue to escalate, it is difficult to say what will happen next. One thing remains certain, however. Justice must be served and reform must take place in the American police system. We cannot afford another George Floyd or another Michael Brown. Action must be taken and it has to be taken now.